Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of audit. For the benefit of those watching on our YouTube channel, members of the committee are present in the chamber, and these members will be voting on proposals tonight. Other members of the council are also in attendance and participating via MS Teams and can take part in any discussion, ask questions, but cannot vote. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out guidance on how meetings will be conducted, including the ground rules. When we start the meeting, we will confirm attendance of voting members doing a roll call. Sally.
Thank you, Chair. When I call your name, please can you confirm that you are present? And first of all, we have received apologies from the Chair, Councillor Cannon, Councillor Rose.
Present.
Councillor B.
Present.
Councillor Clokey.
Present.
We have received apologies from Councillor Hood, who's been substituted by Councillor Barton. Present. Councillor Lark.
Present.
Query.
Present.
I can confirm we have 6 voting members present.
Very much. I will now ask officers, please, to present and introduce themselves, working from my right, maybe. Thank you, Sharon.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sharon Shelton. I'm the Director of Finance and Transformation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Word and I'm the Chief Financial Services Officer.
Good evening, all. I'm Donna Riley, Principal Accountant.
Hey, I'm Jonathan Idle, I'm the Head of Internal Audit.
Richard Benjamin, Chief Audit Executive.
Karen Herbert, Deputy Internal Audit Manager.
Anyone, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, one and all. So item 2 is apologies.
We have received apologies from Councillor Cannon and Councillor Hood.
Any more from the floor? No, not enough members here for that. Okay, item 3, notification of substitute members, which we already know about, but I'll let Sally tell us who they are.
We have Councillor Barton, who's substituting for Councillor Hood.
Right, Sally. Item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Clokey.
As always, not a conflict, but for transparency, I'm still employed by Fidelity, who manage one of the funds we invest.
Very much, Councillor Clokey. And we now move to item 5, the minutes. I will ask whether I can sign these that you have read in your papers. Can I have your permission to sign? That is agreed. Thank you very much. I will sign these, obviously, as Vice Chairman. Which takes us now to item number 6, annual report of the Chairman of the Audit Committee. So this is obviously Councillor Robert Cannon's annual report. Mrs. Shelton.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chairman or Chairman for this evening. Yes, the Chairman isn't here and it's his report. If so, I could just say a few words on his behalf, really. This is really a report summarising what you as an audit committee have been doing over the past year to help provide some assurances about the adequacy of the risk management process, internal controls, and financial reporting, etc., etc. So it brings all those things together, and the intention is that the report from the Chair of the Audit Committee, on behalf of you all, goes to the next council meeting. So really, it's open to you as members of the committee to decide whether the Chairman has done a good enough job or not in preparing this report. Thank you.
Members, has any member got a query about this report? We are asked to make any amendments as necessary. Nothing from the floor. Nothing on screen. Okay, so at number 3, we consider this report, make any amendments as necessary, and recommend that it is presented to the full council to provide the independent assurance on the adequacy of the risk management framework, internal control environment, integrity of the financial reporting and annual government process. Do I have your support? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Page 33, agenda item 7. This is risk management. Sharon, thank you.
Thank you again. So this is your standard risk management report that comes to every meeting that you hold. This time, at this meeting last time, we discussed very briefly about local government reorganisation and devolution, because it was an emerging risk at that point, albeit it had literally was an emerging risk. We've now added this into the strategic risk register, as you see from the report. At the moment, it's classed amber. This has the potential to go anywhere, frankly. It could be red next, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it is now on your strategic. Last time, there were 3 risks that were classified as red. They were the savings and transformation strategy, the local plan, and the implementation of the Agile project. The savings and transformation strategy and local plan remain red risk, but there has been some change with regard to Agile, because, as I'm sure you all know, in March, Cabinet decided on a change of direction for the Agile project, and we are now moving towards a managed exit from that project and back to the IDOCS product that the council used before. So we've removed implementation of the Agile project from the strategic risk register, but instead, in its place, there is a new risk which is called managed exit from the Agile. So for now, that has been classified as a red risk, because we're literally, just starting on that journey. I think quite quickly that the risk will come down. But at this moment in time, it's classified as red. But obviously, we'll keep you updated on where we are with that. And finally, I think it was in October or November, you decided to recommend that the chairman of this committee should become the member risk champion. And that was endorsed by Cabinet. So what I did was put together some responsibilities for that role of member risk champion, which are appended, and I would ask for you to endorse. So that's it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Members. Councillor Parry.
Well, I did have a query actually about the things that appear on the strategic risk register. And it's just really off the back of, and I can't remember what the actual thing was, but very recently the council unfortunately had costs of over 300,000 against them with a planning thing that had all gone horribly wrong. And I just wondered, I know I saw under Annex 2, there's this section, increased number of planning appeals and inquiries. I wondered, certainly in view of the size of this recent one, whether they ever, when somebody makes an appeal, whether it's ever looked at in a way and thinking, crikey, we might be in trouble here, and it might then feature on the strategic risk register itself, or do they all happen so quickly? Or I just wanted to understand a little, because 300,000 wasn't something that was expected. So I don't know, and I know there's something else bubbling in the background as well, isn't there, after a recent meeting? And I just wonder whether these things ever then, what the thought process is behind them. Sorry, I've phrased this very badly, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Thanks.
Sharon?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. What we have to do is decide, is this a strategic risk? If it's a one-off, is it a strategic risk to the council? If it's repeating itself time upon time upon time, it is becoming a strategic risk. And I think that's something that we have to keep under review. So that 300,000 appeal blew up. You're absolutely right. I think it was a big scheme from recollection, and it was always going to be a big number if they went to appeal. So I think there was a sense that you never know exactly how much it's going to cost, but there was a sense to be big. if it's contained once, that's fine. It's not necessarily a strategic risk. If it's going to keep becoming a strategic risk, so I think it's something that needs to be kept on the radar. Did you want to add?
Quickly add, the lack of a local plan as well is partly because we haven't got the plan, which gives it officers and members a difficult position to be in with planning appeals and everything else. We do have a small reserve, and I emphasise the word small reserve to cover these any particular year. That particular one was quite a large one. In fact, it's the largest one I can certainly remember in a number of years. But if I remember right, it was for 900 homes. So it was a very large scheme that was going on and everything else. We do keep an eye on it with the planning team, and there have been reports to the Housing Planning Scrutiny Select Committee over the types of appeals that have happened. And normally Sharon and I will sit with Eleanor and James at the end of the financial year and say, right, what do you think we've got coming on the horizon that we know that have either been rejected or we could face appeal if there is going to be an issue? And we will try to put money into the reserve to anticipate it as much as we can. We can't plan for everything.
Cool. Councillor Clokey.
Just following up on that from a slightly different angle, I think that specific instance wasn't down to our decision making, but down to an operational. There was an operational failure. Should operational risk be an element on the strategic risk register? Because I've seen there's always going to be some level of we make a mistake in processing something that has cost, and that's something. Should we be tracking that and looking at how our controls are implemented, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be done. So if something serious was happening, that should be brought forward by the relevant director through to management team in the escalation process, and then management team will make a decision whether that needs to be entered on the strategic risks register. So something like that could end up on the risk register. It hasn't yet, but it could. So that there are ways and means by which it could, and it could be for any operation.
Lark.
That's me, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just looking at Tunbridge Castle Gatehouse. I was slightly horrified that it was going to overrun as usual. Typical building. Builders are terrible. Do we have a suitable enough reserve? Because I think these things go on forever, and the costs just go up and up and up. And you're with listed buildings and architectural monuments, you are in a dangerous world. I speak from experience.
I need to be careful what I'm saying and whether I do, but my understanding is the contract cost is sufficient. What's agreed is sufficient. There is an overrun, as you know, on the length contract, which will have ramification for the revenue income through weddings, school visits, things like that. And that will need to be brought forward through the budget monitoring process and reported through to Cabinet, etc. I don't think it's a strategic risk, but it should be on the operational risk register of the service concerned. We'll be looking at that to make sure that we've got it on there.
You come back, Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't actually asking for the numbers, but just no, never ask a builder, because when there's one sound you never want to hear from a builder, and that's because that's dangerous. No, it was just the fact that we have actually got that set aside, so to speak. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cloak again.
Yes, on Agile, we've picked up under the consequences, obviously, the impact due to the change management while everything moves over from both the data and all the staff time required to do it. Do we also need to pick up part of the whole point of going to Agile was that it was going to provide newer, better functionality, more efficient ways of doing everything, etc. Presumably, in doing this, there is at least a risk that we are not going to deliver the benefits that we were going to get off the back of, what we can do under IDOCs, etc. Is that something that should be included under that risk?
Fair point. I think you're right. Yeah, I'll take that back. Yeah.
Councillor Clokey, members, anyone else? Everyone's happy? Right, thank you very much for that then. So on page 33, we're going to note the update to the Strategic Risk Register. We're going to note the service risks in Annex 2 and especially note the responsibilities of the member risk champion as detailed in Annex 3. Can I have your support? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to page 55, Treasury Management Performance Update. Donna.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. The Treasury report being presented tonight is set out on page 55 to 67 of the report pack. It provides an update of the investment position, including both the Lothbury and the Hermes property funds. If members could note, there is an error in paragraph 5.16. The figure should be 344,000 for the break-even point and not the 379, which is the dividend figure today. Moving into section 5 on page 56, the performance to the 28th of February 25. On 5.1, Table 1 provides a summary of the investments held at the end of February, which totals 67.1 million. Over the course of the year, our investments have generated investment income of 3.1 million, resulting in a favourable variance of just under 338,000 against the revised budget. The strong performance for both the cash and core investments have resulted in interest earnings of 2.8 million. This has comfortably exceeded the revised budget of 2.5 million for the same period. The main drivers for the increase is the bank rate stability. So the bank rate has been slower to reduce than previously anticipated. It's currently holding at 4.5. We thought that we would see another rate reduction in May, but that's been pushed out to August with another one anticipated for the end of the year. Again, this is projections. Market volatility. So the markets have continued to react to prevailing conditions, including recent developments from the United States. And the money market fund performance. So the money market funds are continuing to offer rates broadly in line with the bank rate. So we're benefiting from that. Looking into the long-term investments set out on 5.6, this is covered on pages 57 and 58. It relates to the property funds. So the property funds have generated £118,000 worth of income to the end of December 24, providing an annualised return of 4.21. Please note that this is reported quarterly rather than up to the end of February. On Table 2, on 5.11, sets out the sales values for the LAPF, that's the local authority property funds, and the Hermes funds, which continue to show a net benefit since inception of 484,000. 5.15, set out on page 58, is in respect of the Lothbury Property Fund. To date, we've received 5 payments totaling 1.276 million in respect of the initial investment. The remaining assets are now expected to be sold by June 2025. This has been pushed back a few times now, and the payments will continue to be paid out on future completions. The income budget in respect of Lothbury was removed at revised estimate stage. This was due to the uncertainty around the income stream. However, they are still generating dividends and have distributed 32,000 this year. Going on to 5.17, Hermes Property Funds. They held an EGM in February to vote on a resolution to continue with a potential merger. This has been passed with 94% of the vote in favour. I previously stated that 75% would be deemed approved. And therefore they are holding further merger talks. However, Investors have now been advised that the potential merger only relates to the large pension funds. Therefore, it's going to exclude small investors such as TNBC. Next milestone for the investment, for the Hermes property funds, is to hold an EGM before or on the 30th of May 25 to advise on the way forward. So I've had a look at the figures, and as at the 31st of March, the net asset value on the Hermes investments is just below 923,000. This will change, and this compares with the initial investment of £1 million that we invested in the fund in 2017. While this reflects a potential capital shortfall, it should be noted that the fund have generated cumulative dividends of 266,000 to date. Moving on to page 59 on 5.21, the medium-term investments. So our multi-asset funds generated just under 193,000 to the end of February. It's approximately 57,000 above the revised budget for the same period and is providing an annualised return of 4.96%. I just want to make members aware that Link Advisory Services have merged and are now part of the MUFG Corporate Markets Group. That's the Mitsubishi United Franchise Group. So you'll see that name dotted through our document now. Lastly, I'd like to confirm that Treasury activities have complied with Treasury limits and the prudential indicators for 24-25, and there has been no breach to report to members. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Donna, and thank you for making us all this money. Members. Everybody's happy. Okay, right, and no one on screen. No one on screen. Okay, thank you. So we are going to note the Treasury management position and the current positions in respect of Lothbury and Hermes property investment funds. Do I have your support? Thank you very much. That was unanimous. Takes us to page 69, item 9, informing the audit risk assessment for Tunbridge and Moorlin 24-25. Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Chair. As part of our annual close down for the accounts, our external auditors, Grant Thornton, asked us a range of questions to assess the overall risk of the financial processes financial year. The questions cover a wide range of issues, including fraud, regulations, related parties, whether the council is considered to be a going concern, and estimates used to produce the financial statement. Annex 1, starting at page 73 of your agenda, contains a proposed response to our auditors. The report was prepared by myself but shared and endorsed by the council's management team. The recommendation at page 69 is asked members to consider and amend the response and endorse its return to the auditors. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Members. Anyone on screen? I was only Martin and Kim, but on Wendy. Okay, so that is everyone's happy with that then, Mr. Warden. Thank you very much. Recommendation is 3.1 is we are to consider and subject to any amendments of which they aren't required, endorse the responses set out at Annex 1A. Do I have your support? Thank you. That was unanimous. Which bounces us over to agenda item 10, internal audit strategy, charter and mandate. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just quickly introduce the report. The report, as I say, contains two documents, the internal audit strategy and the internal audit charter and mandate, both for approval today. The strategy is a requirement of the global internal audit standards and should support the strategic objectives and success of TNBC. The strategy is a plan of action that's designed to achieve a kind of longer term objectives for the TNBC's internal audit function. And the strategy attached contains 4 objectives with supporting initiatives. So continuous improvement, aligning with strategic objectives of the council, improving approaches to auditing, and managing development and talent within the function. Once approved by the Audit Committee, internal audit's KPIs will be reviewed to ensure that they align with the achievement of these initiatives within the strategy, and the strategy and progress against such will be reviewed by senior management and audit committee on an annual basis. Second document is the Internal Audit Charter and Mandate. The Charter sets out the mandate for internal audit, and the requirement for internal audit is prescribed through the Accounts and Audit Regulations and the Local Government Act. The Charter document, as you can see, also sets out the authority of internal audit within the authority and the access to staff and information to carry out our work. It sets out the independence of internal audit through the position in the organisation and our reporting lines. It sets out the oversight and responsibilities of the Audit Committee, as well as the roles and responsibilities of the Chief Audit Executive, and sets out communication of the Chief Audit Executive with senior management of the Audit Committee. Finally, it also includes the scope and types of internal audit work that we complete. Happy to take any questions.
Very much, Richard. Members. Councillor Bishop.
Chair. Just for a bit of clarification, can you explain a bit more about global internal standards, where they're all coming from?
Certainly. So the global internal audit standards come from the Institute of Internal Audit, and they apply across the world. They were released just over a year ago under consultation and came into force in 10th of January this year. So there's been a lot of work. The previous committees, we've brought gap assessment and how we're changing our practices to make sure we align with them. In addition to that, so SIPFA have released a application note for local government. There's some elements of the global internal audit standards that are hard to apply to local government organisations. Within that application note, it sets out some of the changes. So, for example, I can find the page now. There's a section in the Charter under the Audit Committee oversight. So, on page 110, at the top of 110, there's 3 bullet points there that have been amended slightly. So, this is where they're set out in the global internal audit standards, and they don't align. So it's kind of setting resources for internal audit through the Audit Committee and do not align with the kind of structural and governance processes. So those 3 points there set out how we differ from the standard. That's what the global internal audit standards are.
Very much, Richard. Anyone else? I do note, Richard, at the page 115, at some point this has to be signed, not reflected in the recommendations. Does that matter?
Correct, Chair. So the Chair of the Committee.
Right. Okay then, members. Let's go for recommendations. Our internal audit strategy attached to Annex 1 and the internal audit charter and mandate at 2. Do I have your support? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11 on page 117, internal audit and counterplan 25-26. Richard.
Chair. The global internal audit standards that we've just been talking about by the Chief Audit Exec to establish a based annual audit plan, which determines the activities and priorities for audit function year. The plan as a whole must align with the goals and enable the Chief Audit to provide an overall risk management, governance and control at the end of the financial year. To fulfil this requirement, a risk-based audit plan has been prepared for the 25-26 financial year. This includes the work of the accountability team, meaning the plan presented in a pack is a combined internal audit plan. We've developed this plan using a risk-based approach. So risk areas and priorities have been identified through a combination of activities. This included a review of the strategic and service risk registers, analysis of the wider environment, use of our own organisational knowledge and discussions with directors and service, both individually and collectively, part of the management teams. The proposed plan has been reviewed and endorsed by management team, and a copy is attached in Annex 1. This details the audit reviews under consideration and detailed activities from the counter fraud plan. Whilst the plan is drawn up annually, it is important that internal audits are able to be flexible and respond to key risks as they emerge. We've therefore prioritised and scheduled audits for the first 6 months of 2025-26, and these 11 audits are shown on page 121. They include detail of how they link with strategic or service level risk registers and also the rationale for inclusion in the plan. The plan also includes scope for liaison with services to assess progress towards implementing management actions from previous audits. There are a number of management actions that were previously agreed that were dependent on the implementation of Agile. And since this is not now happening, we need to revisit those with the relevant managers to understand what alternative actions need to be agreed and put in place with reasonable timescales for this. Page 122 shows the further areas to be kept under consideration for audit later in the year. These areas will be discussed further with relevant directors in August as part of the 6 monthly liaison and planning meetings that we hold. And we'll be looking to ensure that these still remain the most relevant areas for internal review and consider whether there are any new or emerging risks that we need to consider. Following those conversations, approval for additions to be made to the audit plan for the second half of the year would be sought at September committee. It should also be noted that changes to the plans may be required to enable internal audit to remain able to respond to emerging risks. If any significant changes are required, then approval of the committee may be sought for this. Finally, the plan includes details of resource for proactive fraud activity investigations and the ongoing resource assigned to the Kent Intelligence Network. More specific detail of those counter fraud activities are included on page 123. I'm happy to take any questions relating to the internal audit part of the plan, and James is online for any questions relating to the counter fraud section.
Thank you, Karen. Members? No one wants to talk. Anyone online wants to say anything? Okay, then. Thank you very much again, Karen. And we'll move to the recommendation, which says that we are to consider and subject to any amendments required to approve the internal audit counter fraud plan for 25-26. Do I have your support? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Which takes us to page 125, number 12, internal audit and counter fraud progress report. Mr. Benjamin.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, so this is the quarterly progress report, internal audit and counter fraud progress report, provides an update on the 24-25 audit plan and work completed between January and March 2025. 2 audits were completed to draft during the period. Summary for housing allocation assessment and review is contained in Appendix A on page 134 and received a substantial assurance. Unfortunately, I would just like to draw your attention to page 135, and due to a last-minute update, an error with the report that was sent to print, there's the summary for Tunbridge Castle project, which was an advisory piece of work, is missing from the report pack, so that will be issued as a supplementary report following the meeting. On page 134, you can see the progress against the 24-25 audit plan. There are now 7 audits remaining in fieldwork, and there is just 1 that remains in planning, and this has been due to delays in engagement with the business, but this audit should now be progressing. All the remaining audits are due to be completed by the end of May in time for the internal audit annual report and the opinion of the chief audit. Page 129 covers resourcing, both staff resourcing and technical resourcing. These details of the implementation of our new internal audit management software, which is now fully live and being used by the team, as well as access to AI software and tools to assist with data analytics. Regarding staff resources, since the last committee, a principal auditor has left the team. and we've recruited a new trainee who's due to start within the next month. And finally, on that note, before I take any questions, this will also be my last audit committee, as I will be moving on in early May, and the role of Chief Audit. I'd like to pass over to James to introduce the counter fraud.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, there's the only thing I would add is the National Fraud Initiative. We're a third of the way through clearing those matches, primarily looking at matches within council tax reduction and single person discount. Further updates will be provided at the next committee on the outturn of those reviews. The Kent Intelligence Network continues to provide good value for money, with the identification of council tax liability across single person discounts and other exemptions, as well as identifying unrated business properties from the rating list. Happy to take any questions.
Very much, gentlemen. My bad. I've meant to tell everybody that this is a matter for information. So if you want to say anything, don't put any proposals forward. Does anybody want to say anything? Councillor Cokie.
Just a question on AI, was that MS Copilot? What use cases are you finding for it, and how effective are you finding it?
So for Copilot, a pilot's been rolled out for full access, so not everyone in the team has full access to Copilot. The main areas we're using it for at the moment are audit planning and using it kind of to interpret, kind of identify potential risks, and where we've talked about potential risks, or we've identified them through the planning. We can also interrogate AI to think about what would be kind of expected controls that we would, expect to see, and help us build a work program in order to do testing.
And moving forward, as per it was in the strategy that Richard introduced earlier on, use of AI is a key part of our development moving forward. So in addition to what Richard said in terms of doing engagement planning for individual audit, we'll be looking at, with our audit software, how more effective to operate generally. So that'll be how we put reports together a lot more effectively. That's a major part of our improvement.
Very much. No one else? Okay, well, that was a matter for information, so we can move on. Thank you very much. So we go to the next matter for information, which is number 13 on 141, Grant Thornton's indicative audit plan for TNBC.
Good evening, Chair. This is Sophia Brown, Key Audit Partner with Grant Thornton for your external audit. Now, we've just had a technical difficulty because my colleague Becky was going to present this item, but his Wi-Fi's dropped out. He's trying to join back, but oh, I think he's here. If not, I can lead. Becky, are you there?
Yes,
okay,
thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you.
Apologies, Chair. Good evening, members. If I could just start, Chair. Today we present the indicative audit plan for the 24-25 audit period. This plan has been reviewed and agreed with management, which covers our overview of the plan scope and the timing of our work for this calendar year. We have included this as an indicative audit plan as some part of our risk assessment and planning work is still ongoing and undergoing some internal reviews, Chair. I will quickly jump, maybe, Chair, to page 158 of the pack, where I think I will just be able to summarize everything that we need to cover for today. On page 158, if I can look onto the financial statement audit, Chair, our aim, Chair, is to cover the rest of our report from this page, and then anything else, maybe like in the other sections of this audit report, we can take the questions from. Our audit approach is risk-based, tailored, and reflecting our thorough understanding of the council's business. We have identified significant risk over the areas of management override of controls, valuation of other land and buildings, pension fund, and net liability asset. All these areas, Chair, involved a degree of management judgment and estimations, and the values involved around these areas are large compared to other parts of the accounts prepared by the council. So we perform special audit considerations over these areas in response to this risk. The details of those procedures they're covered down further on the report from page 157 to 160, which I'm not going to ask you to go down there. But our procedures will include the review of unusual journals and communicate with management expert, and amongst others, just challenge management account. If I can move to the materiality at this stage, our planning materiality at this stage is 1.49 million, which is approximately 2.5% of the prior year gross expenditure. This is an increase, Chair, from the prior year, where the percentage was determined at 2%, but any of these changes does not reflect any elements of changes in our understanding of the client, but it's just on the auditor judgment in line with some firm guidance and changes that we've made within the firm. A lower materiality has been set on the senior officers' remuneration for our audit purposes. This has been set at a lower amount of 20k. But Chair, in terms of the overall account, we will be reporting all errors above 74k in all the areas of the audit. If I can touch on the other aspect of our work, which is the value for money work. This work as well is ongoing, risk assessment and planning. There are no new risks at this stage that we're going to bring into your attention, Chair, but we'll continue to monitor and update our assessment on this area. Among other things that we need to be doing in our work is to follow up on various improvement recommendations that we've made in the prior and some of the significant risks that were still ongoing in the prior in that area. If I can touch maybe on the proposed audit fee for this year, which is sitting at 163k. This has been reviewed and agreed, like I mentioned, with management, but it's also in line with the PSAA framework scale fee. I think I will want to pause here, Chair, for now in terms of the audit plan. And if there are any questions like in relation to further pages of this report, we'll be happy to take them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone to comment on anything? Everybody? Councillor Bishop.
Yeah, it's not really for the auditors, it's more for Paul or Sharon. I mean, there's a plan as well, there's a timetable. I'm just wondering, are you comfortable with that? I mean, I know well, I know you've done many audits, Sharon. I've been involved with many audits. But that's my question. Okay.
I'm happy to answer. Sharon's done 44 closed there. She was quite happy to tell me that the other day. As of, I think, June this year, I've done 21. So we're not that. No, we're geared up for the early arrival in June, which is actually helpful for us because we're not having to parallel run the estimates at the same time this year, which actually makes it a bit easier for the team to having to manage it through. Donna is certainly geared up and been doing various bits and pieces on some early work they've been doing, and so is Amanda, who's currently online at the moment. So at the moment, we are confident that they'll arrive and they'll be quite happy with what the papers we'll have ready for them at that stage. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No one else? I can only imagine what the former late Councillor Mark Worrell would have said about the £163,828 for the fee. And it's yes.
Just to add to that, Chairman, the prices did come down quite significantly following the closure of the Audit Commission. If we'd still be under the Audit Commission, I suspect the fees that we are being charged now would have been comparable with the Audit Commission. Just to make that point. So.
Okay, thank you very much. And the other thing I was going to comment on, it's a good job we don't have all our agendas printed, because look at the amount of toner that is used there. Right, that was a matter for information. We can move on to another matter of information. Agenda item 14, page 197, Grant Thornton Audit Progress Report and Sector Update.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take this report. If I direct you to page 203 of the pack, and it's page 5 of the report itself, it gives you a very brief summary of where we are at today's date. So you'll have just seen the plan that Becky has presented, and on that basis we are where we plan to be at this stage, and we are gearing up for starting the full audit of the accounts in mid-June. So as Paul mentioned just there, we had quite a lot of discussion around the timing of the audit. And I know that in the last couple of years, when we have started the audit in October, it's been quite challenging for your finance team, but they have dealt with it very well. And on that basis, when I was asked to put forward some of my district councils for the earlier running of audits, I was able to put forward Tunbridge and Malling with a lot of certainty that officers would be able to deliver. Moving on to value for money, just as Becky said, we are finishing our planning work around that, but we're very much going on the work that we did last year and following that up. If in the work that we do in the next couple of months does indicate to us that there are any new significant weaknesses, we'll bring those to management's attention as well as the attention of this committee. I will stop there. The rest of the paper, I think, we have a table of deliverables on page 7, but the rest of the paper is sector updates, and I can take any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Very much, Sophia. Any members, any questions? There are no questions from the floor, and I can see no yellow hands on the screen, so that matter for information can be accepted. Thank you very much, everybody, and we can... Oh,
one final thing, it's just come to my mind. So in the sector updates, there is a slide on an event that we are holding in early June. We did send an invite to the audit chair, and it's open to all members should you wish to attend also. So it's on page 20 of the report, and it's a webinar for audit committee members.
Very much. We'll chivvy everyone along and try to get a good turnout.
Thank you.
Thank you very much again. That is a matter for information which we can move on. So, agenda item 15, I have no urgent items. Now, agenda item 16, slightly new rule here, everybody. So, I propose to move that the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting during consideration of any item, the publication of which would disclose exempt information. I need a seconder. Councillor Art was slightly in front there. And we now need to agree that, please. That is unanimous agreed. Thank you very much. External audit can stay if required, if you'd like.
Thank you. We'll stay.
Joanne, could you please confirm